Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Gayle Carson. Welcome to Living Regret Free, a program that shows you how to live a better and more joyful life. As an added bonus, I invite you to listen to an introduction to my Mindset Matters program, which ties into this so well. Go to www.sobmindset.com. It's free, and I know you will enjoy it. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at gaylecarson13@gmail.com or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter. My guest today is Marian Mc Spadden. Marian is, along with her husband, a multi-million-dollar business owner. She was born in the secluded culture of a horse-drawn buggy religious organization. When she was 34 years old, now listen to this, 34 years old. When she was 34 years old, she escaped that world and immediately knew she was attracted to education, took a GED, later graduated with a bachelor's degree, and personally sees no skin color, has a strong ability to bridge cultural gaps, and speaks to corporate, women's, and other groups. Everyone has something that they are prisoner to, and Marianne helps people find what that is and break free. Well, Marianne, I want to first of all welcome you to the show. And you and I had a chance to meet each other, so that was terrific. But welcome to Women in Business.
Hi, Gayle. It's an honor to be on your show.
So what's the best thing you've learned that you wish the world would know?
Well, Gayle, I think if we can learn that we never get to the end of learning, that is a great thing to learn, and that we always do have something that we can get better on. And I think that is what has compelled me forward in my journey, because I did have a major breakthrough at the age of 34, but I have found that I had to continue to have breakthroughs.
Well, that's true. I mean, some people get very settled in who they are and what they do. If they don't have special circumstances like you did, but that doesn't allow necessarily for them to grow. So when you are talking about where you were and breaking free, what do you contribute to your success in that and your quest to stay free? Because, that was quite 34, you're indoctrinated. So how did all of that come about?
Gayle, it wasn't fun. Most transitions are not fun in life. Even when babies are born, that's not a fun transition. And they're painful and they're uncomfortable. And I think that's what started my search is life became somewhat uncomfortable to where I didn't want to settle or stay in that discomfort. And as I started just a little bit of seeking, it was like the universe just began to line up to bring people into my life that I remember one incident particularly where someone saw my pain and they went through a series of steps to lead me to where they thought I might be able to hear something. And the attention getting point was to tell me, Marian, you are stubborn and unsubmissive. And I was just shocked. Nobody had ever talked to me like that in that direct manner, head on, telling me who I was. And on top of that, they had some wisdom I say it's almost like they planted a seed of love in my heart, almost like it pierced my heart with a thorn or something that went in that was somewhat painful, but it had to be a little bit attention getting to make me start listening, to make me start thinking that life could be different.
But if you were in a cult, who were you speaking to? In other words, when you said, well, you were speaking and someone came up to you, who were you speaking to at the time?
Well, interestingly enough, this was a young man, 19 years old, and his family had invited me to stay at their house while the parents went on long-term trips, and I stayed with the children. And this was 10 years later, and just happened to intersect back together in our lives. So it's interesting how people that we met or invested into their lives 10 years before can come back and help us when they are younger than we are.
Well, that's for sure. I mean, it's amazing. I just connected with someone, believe it or not, I hate to say this, I haven't talked to in 60 years, and he's been following me, but I had no clue he was, and he finally got in touch, and it was really amazing to listen to our conversation, and it's almost like we had never been apart. But what would describe your childhood to us?
I grew up in a very secluded culture. We didn't have the modern technology that most people in America have had, even though I grew up in the central United States region. Our mode of travel was horse and buggy. We didn't have technology. And so I lived on a farm with dairy cows. So we were very outdoorsy. I loved the outdoors. You know, Gayle, I pretty much enjoyed the culture. It was somewhat secluded, freeing, lots of space. And if I could paint a really good picture of why you might want to be a part of that culture, and lots of family, 7 brothers and sisters, many nieces and nephews, parents who were stable, lived together, you know, married and together all my life. I never wondered where mom or dad hardly ever were, because they showed up for 3 meals a day and we all sat at the kitchen table. And so there's so many wonderful life skills in that culture. We were taught work ethics. We were taught to a big degree honor and respect, and not just in being entitled to everything, but that you worked for what you got. And the part that was missing for me was the emotional part. And part of the 34-year breakthrough and change in my life was, at that same time, I told the story to an adult that I'd never shared before. And her response was, I was raped when I was 5 years old too. I always knew my story, but I never put language to it. And when that revelation came that was not right, and it had happened in the culture, it had happened in the family, it just really perpetuated that search to find healing and to find that wholeness emotionally. And I found, as I looked around, that a lot of the people that I knew that were my family and my friends, they didn't know how to help me in that. They didn't have skill sets. And so here I was, heartbroken. I was devastated. And the first thing I did is I went to the library and got every book that I could find on incest and rape and studied up on the subject. And that became a key thing, that every time I ran into a really crisis thing in my life, I would go for education. I would help understand and find people who could help me in that.
But I'm surprised that in that culture that you were able to find books that even talked about incest or rape. I would think that it would be a kind of a forbidden subject.
I went to the library, the public library, and I did it without asking anyone permission or even telling them what I was doing. I had to do pretty much everything undercover.
Wow. So if you could do one thing over in your journey, what would it be?
Well, for me, one big mistake I made was I isolated myself too much, because I had to go undercover. When I got to the other side of that break, where I was on the outside of the community, I actually went into 9 months of, you could call it hiding or protecting myself from anyone who knew me where I was physically located. And so that meant that I had to be very secretive or protective of my identity, even on the other side of.
So how old were you when all of this happened to you?
I was 33 when the major change came, and 34 when I made the break. It took me 5 months to, when that major break came, I'd actually stepped outside of the community and done, again, kind of undercover and not asking anyone permission, because I was 33 years old and I wasn't like held captive more than my mindset or what I believed I could do. So when I made that courageous move, and it was took a lot of courage on my part to accept outside information and allow that to reset my thinking, and they didn't tell me what I needed to do. They just helped me uncover and find what was on the inside of me. And that's where the incest came out, because I was just talking. I didn't have a filter anymore. I couldn't, hold everything on the inside. I couldn't stop here and share part of my life, but not all of my life. It was amazing how that worked when we started opening up. So I didn't want to go back into the community and face the realities that I was afraid. I wanted to run at that point, but my new internal guiding system, that new connection that came on the inside of me, and I say it was from God, but I followed that. I grabbed a hold of that and I held it very closely, and I really give that a lot of credit for helping me go through those changes. But I did go back and close every responsibility I had. I didn't just run and leave things open-ended. I confronted my perpetrator. I let my family know what happened, and then I left in the dark. And so my life had a lot of secrets to it. And then to now open up when I could have had more freedom, it was like I was just kind of built in to be isolated.
Wow.
And I allowed some relationships in my life that isolated me as well.
So what brought you to the conclusion of a worldview of pretty much everything you try doesn't work?
Well, because I expected when I got to the other side of the break, or that divide, that people were going to be more free. I just expected people to take advantage of everything they had opportunity to be better people. And maybe in the Christian world, I expected them to be better. And what I found is in almost every circle that I got into, the people were more selfish than the ones that I had broke free from. Because a lot of things in my community were about caring for each other and helping each other, but it had its limitations because people didn't know how to connect with emotional. My mom was a wonderful mom. I had an exceptional mom. She was a business woman. She had common sense. She worked hard. She provided for us. But when it came to emotional help, she had zero. She didn't even know how to ask us how her day went, or even hug us or tell us we're great in her life or anything. She had zero support.
But does that come from being in a cult, Marianne, or is that,
yes,
is that something you see prevalent in a cult?
Yes, it is very cultural for the community that I grew up.
Interesting.
Yeah. Not every family is the same, but our family was very much that way. And there were hurts in our family that were buried. So
how do you help people break free?
Well, we identify, first of all, what it is they want to break free from. And then I've got a 7-module plan, and we just follow the steps. And it's a progression. You take it one step at a time, and that's what I help people do. Go from what's not working, whatever that thing is they're being imprisoned to. It could be a relationship, it could be a circumstance like it was for me, and it could be, for me, it was a mindset. And we break through those limiting mindsets that just keep you stagnant and miserable, and you just learn how to endure life more than really thrive and live in life. And then when you get to the other side of this transformation that I take people through, then you can live, and there's really, the sky's the limit, because my shop is even not end all to be all. There are people who know so much more than what I know, and people can go on and become incredibly great.
Well, I know you make a big differentiation, as there should be, between a stagnant life and a vibrant life. So how do you describe that to the people that you work with?
Well, when I was stagnant, I endured life. I did things. My life should have been happy. It wasn't like I was being whipped every day physically, but my emotional hurts and the heartbrokenness of my own things that happened in my life, they just helped me bondage. They helped me trap to believing a certain set of rules. Everything was about what you can and can't do. So whatever that is for my clients, that's what we focus on to identify it and then move to the point of they no longer have that issue. It's amazing, Gayle, when you start focusing on the things that hold you prisoner, or they limit your freedom, they limit your thinking, they limit your ability to connect and love people. Pretty much the way I grew up is like every other boy and girl grows up in the world, and that is they want to be loved and they need the basic elements of life. If you have love in your life and the basic elements of needs of food, dry bed, warm bed, etc., that's pretty much all you need to be really happy and fulfilled. And so when you have challenges in those areas for whatever brought that breakdown, then getting to the other side where that no longer is an issue and you can now love others. And unfortunately for many people, we become adults and we have to choose that for whatever happened in our childhood, that trust got broken. And when that trust gets broken, then it's hard for us to connect with people in the depth that we are created to, that we have the capacity to. And I think that's what I'm finding more and more, the more I heal, is that I can connect with people and I can relate to them, and I can walk into a room of 2 people or 1,000 people and I don't feel lonely or alone. I can now walk in a room and I can connect with 1 or 2 or feel connected in a room full of 1,000 people.
And that's really an accomplishment, So what would you say to people, who aren't exactly in your circumstances, but they want to make these big changes? Where do they get the courage to make these big changes in life? Again, it's hard because I had such a terrific life that I didn't, find it difficult to make a change or to attempt to get the courage. I just was very fortunate that I had the parents that I did, and I'm grateful for that all the time. But where do people get the courage to make big changes in life?
Well, for me, and I know in one of the trainings that I took early on, they taught us you cannot change what you do not acknowledge. So the first little tiny step is starting to acknowledge what's not working in your life. And it is amazing how the whole universe will begin to line up. If you want to say the stars will line up for you when you start acknowledging that life is not working, and that little bit of seed of seeking starts happening. And then you respond. You can't stop in the fear, because most of the times, for those of people that are like me and less like you, we stop because it feels fearful and very scary.
Well, it's certainly, I can see that. You've lived a world of I think, a dichotomy, because you along with your husband own a multi-million-dollar business. So what kind of business do you have?
My husband became a part of this business in 1983. So he was well established in the business when I married into it.
And how did you meet, by the way? That would be an interesting.
Well, we met through the company. Our company is on direct sales, and so my husband has spent years and years in the marketplace meeting people that would benefit from having access to buy direct from the factory on commercial roof coatings, agriculture products for farmers, animal health and wellness products for animal producers or family pets, and vehicle lubricants and health and home.
What attracted you to him? Well, it's interesting because you came from a very closed culture, and then you escaped, and then you met him. I assume that it's in this order. Then I became
a part of this company because my sister would use the products in her animal operation. So I was connected to the company and actually met him before I made my change, but didn't have any idea that I would end up marrying him. But he is older than I am. And I think one of the things that he grew up in a culture, not a religious culture, but a community, a small community, rural, with somewhat of a parenting, somewhat familiar. We know some things that are similar because we're almost like a generation apart in our age. So I think part of that stability and maybe a little bit of fatherhood for me too. So it's been interesting, to say the least, how different our paths were, and yet there are common denominators that we're both a little bit driven. So he always wanted somebody to work with that would join in his adventures and not be too intimidated. And he was very attracted to my courage because he saw the courage that I had to make the break. And I was attracted to the strengths and the abilities that he already had.
It's interesting because, it's they always talk about opposites attracting, but it's really interesting to see why some people connect and why some people make it and why some people go through all the trauma that they do. But I think that what you have created in this Breaking Free is really, really exceptional. So if people wanted to get in touch with you, Marian, how would they do that?
Well, they can go to my website, and it's everythingyouTry.com. Or they can go to my name, Marian Mc Spadden, Marian MCS, like Sam, PADDEN.com. But everythingyouTry.com will also reach my website, and they have an opportunity to opt in and receive my free chapter that I wrote in a compilation book this year.
Oh, very good. So you're gifting them with a chapter from the book. Is that correct?
Yes. That's correct.
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
And they can also connect with a link on there that they can click on my website and connect with me through a phone call, a free consultation call with me as well.
So where is Marian heading in the next few years?
I only see good, Gayle. And it's the other thing that has been interesting in my journey. I didn't always see very far into the future. And I don't know if that's just me or if it's everybody, but I sometimes wish I just had that clear shot cut, I could see so clearly, but I always have to walk it out in like a day-to-day operation. But I believe that my voice and my story, my influence, the things that I've learned are literally going to reach the world. And some of that will be through podcasting. Some of that is going to be through speaking in events and places where people will connect to me. It'll be through my coaching and my different programs that I'm still looking to develop that will be available in the future. I am also writing my first independent book that will be my life story. So I'm expecting that the things that I've overcome are going to become a roadmap for other people to overcome things that they need to break free from.
Well, I think it's fantastic, Marian. I think that what you've done and where you are and what you're doing now is so important. And it's interesting because there is somebody out there listening who's saying, I don't have the courage to do this. And Marian is telling you that you do have the courage to do this. So yes. You should really go to her website, which is everythingyouTry.com, or you can go to her own name, Marian, Marian Mc Spadden, MCSPADDEN.com. And download to the chapter of her book that she has for you, because I'm sure it's very valuable for you at this point in your life, and to be able to read and see what somebody else has gone through. I mean, certainly not everybody that's listening to us has been through what she has, but being raised in a cult, being a person of incest and rape. I mean, and then to go on and be who she is today. Don't tell me you can't do it, because you can. So we just have about 2 minutes left, maybe even a little less. What have we not told our listening audience, Marianne, that you would like to say?
Well, I told my husband this morning, I just woke up with this little thing on my mind, that we all have a key inside of us. And that key is called hope. And we don't always see the full realities of what that hope will look like, but we can reach inside of us and get that key out and turn it into doors that will open in the doors that need to open in our life. And that key is inside of us. It's not inside of me for anyone else. I cannot give anyone else my key, but I can help them find that key and give them the courage to open every door that they would like to open, to walk through into the greatness for their life.
Oh, that's great. That sounds fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Marianne. We really appreciate this. Hopefully people listening to this, it will give them a little bit of courage to put their toe in the water and see if they can't escape from whatever, I'll use the word prison, whatever prison they're going through, because we make our own prisons, and everybody is in a different situation. But it really has been a delight to be with you today. So thanks so much for being with us, and good luck for everything you're doing in the future.
Thank you, Gayle, and I return all that back to you as well.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. I choose my guests carefully, so if you have someone you'd like me to interview, please drop me a line at gaylecarson13@gmail.com. In the meantime, check out my intro program, Mindset Matters, at www.sobmindset.com. See you next week.